McDonald's customer vows to go vegan after finding pig nipple in bacon roll. I mean, this person was very lucky because, let's be honest, how many of you actually open up your sandwiches and discover nips? Now, the purpose of this video is not to respond to the customer's reactions, but I just want to take a few minutes to talk about our relationship with food and animals in the modern days, which also happens to answer the question, if vegans don't want to eat animals, then why do they try to make plant foods look, smell, and taste like animal flesh? Let's jump right in. So, we all know that humanity has been eating animals to survive and thrive for thousands of years. Back in the day, our ancestors used to hunt. And of course, people in some regions and cultures around the world are still sustenance hunters. On the other hand, in developing and all developed countries today, we mass produce animals mostly in a way that is invisible to us and have someone else do the slaughter, so we don't have to worry about it. It's a very closed system. Animal products like meat, dairy, and eggs are packaged and sold, so we can easily grab them at supermarkets, and they often come in the form of a burger, sandwich, hot dog, or ice cream or cake, etc. that doesn't really resemble the animals when they were alive, meaning most of the animal-based foods that we eat today are cultured, and many of us when we eat have forgotten that these are animal flesh and their secretions in a sense, or at least we don't look at our food and recognize or think that these used to be animals and see them in our heads because they're heavily processed and presented in a way that suits our modern culture. As the very customer said, I didn't ask for a pork belly roll, I asked for a bacon sandwich, completely disconnecting what bacon is and who it comes from. Bacon is not a piece of pork belly, it's something that we invented. Some foods are almost symbolic to a certain country or culture, like hamburgers or sushi for example, or even holidays, so the consumption of those foods, driven by the sensory pleasure or convenience that we can get from them, is not about the animals, but our habit, culture, and tradition. In fact, in a nation full of animal lovers and that abhors animal abuse, no meat lover loves the fact that their food comes from animals, sentient beings that they might adore, that had to be exploited and slaughtered to turn into their food. In fact, most of us choose to avoid this information, or we would feel guilty or at least not be in alignment with our values. This is why many vegans make plant foods look and taste like the cultured foods they grew up eating. They make the connection that their taste preference, culture or tradition or convenience is not important enough or not a valid justification for taking the life of someone who does not want to die, because it is an unnecessary reason to do so. So they can still embrace their culture and enjoy what they like, while being in alignment with their values, without causing harm, violence, and deaths to sentient animals, or the huge environmental destruction for their own benefits. Also, when we eat meat, we would only want the flesh of an animal, not so much their organs like intestines, heart, brain, or eyeballs, or butthole. Talking about these, this is when we see the animal, and we find these things so repulsive rather than appetizing, and we don't see them as food. So this is why many people, when they discover animal organs in their foods, panic and get outraged. They're paying for dead animal meals. What else do they expect? Speaking of the animal body, I cannot finish this conversation without mentioning the pandemic risk of modern industrial factory farming. Again, we have been eating animals forever, but it's only been decades since we started doing so the way we do today. According to the USDA, over 99% of the animals consumed in the US are raised in factory farms or concentrated animal feeding operations. CDC has estimated that 3 out of 4, or 75%, of the new or emerging viruses today come from non-human animals, and this is due to the intensification of industrial factory farms around the world. CAFO has caused the most pandemics in the past century by creating a perfect storm environment for pathogens to jump to new hosts and make billions and billions of random mutations in the population of animals kept under highly stressful and unsanitary conditions inside those farms. One of them was the 2009 swine flu pandemic that killed 500,000 people. It creates the risk of emergence of highly deadly influenza strains such as H5N1 and H7N9, which have a potential to trigger one of the greatest catastrophes in human history. So again, At least in the West, where much of the animal-based foods are eaten, we only want the flesh of an animal, so all those public health and environmental issues could be solved or dramatically reduced by the development of cultured meat or cell-based meat, which allows us to only create the flesh and or the fat of an animal. It doesn't come with any organ that we don't want, like the gut, that creates and evolves viruses, and most importantly, the sentience, the ability to experience sensations and emotions, and to have unique and subjective experiences. In case you'd like to know more about those issues, as well as antibiotic resistance, I will link several videos in the description below. Please give this video a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video.